And here we are at Riddle College today, and we are going to have a look at doing some leaf lamina cuttings this morning. So the specimen I've got here just down below us is Begonia rex cultorum group. And it's a specimen that's in need of a little bit of attention. We need to sort of like tidy it up a little bit. But what we're going to look for in our cuttings today is we're going to have a look for some leaves which are mature and fully grown but not old. And something like this leaf here would be an ideal candidate for our propagation today. We're going to remove it right from the base, making sure that our knife is nice and safe and it's not near any fingers, and we're just going to remove it. Okay, we've got one here that we prepared earlier, so we've got one on here. What we've done with this, just to run through it again, is I'm not going to put this on the slab to cut it. I'm going to use my secateurs just because the leaves would get crushed, and I'm going to remove it at the base, just here. Now the reason I didn't remove it at the top in here is that if this was left in the pot, it would just rot all the way down. So just good practice to remove it. And we're left with what is called the leaf lamina, and hence the name, the leaf lamina cuttings. Now you're going to put these on the underside up, and you're going to take your knife with secateurs nice closed in the pocket, and we're going to cut through the veins. So I don't know if you want to come in and just do a little zoom in on this, but these are the veins on here, and we're just going to cut them every 2 centimetres, and we're going to cut them halfway through. So just a little bit of pressure on there. I had a group yesterday and they were a bit heavy-handed, and the whole thing was just lacerated up when we put it on the other side. So just nicking through the main veins, and you work through all of the veins. At least this is quite easy because the veins are actually a different, a brighter red colour. So it's just highlighting where they are. You don't have to put any rooting hormone on here. And where you've made the cuts is where the new roots are going to come from. So that's one that's done there, and there's no cuts, visible cuts that you can see here. So that would be an ideal cutting. This one here, this one's been done previously. I don't know if you can just see, there's just a little cut under here. Okay, right, so I'm just going to put that to the side, and my tile. And just to say, this is where we're going to put them today. Now, this is called a half seed tray, and it's been filled up with 50% of coir, or if you're unsustainable, you could use peat, and in a 50% mixture of a drainage material, either perlite or vermiculite. So that's mixed up. You can see our pile of compost just off to your right here. And then we've filled it just over the rim. We've struck it off. We've tamped it down with we're saying today that our world is flat in the pressable world, so we've tamped it down just slightly to get a nice even surface for our leaf lamina cuttings to sit on. So ideally now we should water this container, and then we're going to put the leaf lamina cuttings on. But just for ease, I haven't got the time to do it, I'm just going to put them on there, and then I would ideally then put this in a tray and get it to soak the moisture up from underneath. So this is really easy, these cuttings, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We're now going to put them the proper way up, so we've got the upper sides on the surface and then our undersides down below. I'm going to put them on the surface of our compost. We need them to make contact, so in order for them to make contact, we're going to peg them down with these modified paper clips here. So we're not going to go around the outside and then pin them in like that because they tend to tear. We're just going to take them a little bit inside the leaf margins and just hold them down that way. It is better if the compost is wet because the paper clips stay in better. So we're going to go round the margins like that. So it's making contact with the compost, which is moist, and then the roots will grow on the underside from there. So I'm just going to go and get some more paper clips and finish off that one. But that is doing our leaf lamina cuttings. Hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you. So everyone, back to the leaf lamina cuttings. This is our full leaf lamina cutting that we've got here, and then just beside it on my left hand side we've got 2 leaf squares. Now what are leaf squares? Leaf squares are excellent to do if you've got a plant like this where you've got not many mature, well fully mature but young leaves on it. You've got some nice mature leaves but they're a bit blemished in places, and so you can cut them up into squares. And I've got a leaf here that I've just removed. It's got a bit of damage on this side, so I'm going to cut this into a couple of squares and then put it beside my big leaf lamina cutting. So again, put it with the top side on the bottom of the tile with your underside facing up. Using your knife, and it's really important to use your knife, you can't use your secateurs for this, and put your fingers on the leaf. You need to have that steady. If you've just got one and you try to cut it, it will tear the cutting. So you need to do a nice straight cutting. Your leaf needs to be nice and fully turgid. And it should be about 2 centimetres wide, 2 to 3 centimetres wide. So see how that's going through there really smoothly. I'm going to cut the edges off. I'm going to cut the edges off because that bit there's got the damage on it, so I'm actually going to take this off completely. And I'm going to get 2 squares out of this. I'm going to neaten it up. There we are. So there's 1. And there is 2. Okay, so it always says in the books that you don't have to go through the veins and just give them a little nick like you would do in the full leaf lamina cutting, because you've already cut round the outside. But I don't think it does any harm if you've got any big veins like these, just to give them a little nick through to try and promote a bit more rooting. So I'm just going to give these a little nick through here, just like that. I'm going to close my knife up, make sure it's nice and safe. I'm going to take my leaf squares and I'm going to put them. I can fit another 2 on there, nice and easy. And we used our paper clips before, and I've got another couple of paper clips that I'm going to use. And you just need 1 paper clip per leaf square, just to hold it down. As I say, this should be really watered beforehand, and it really holds it in nicely in position. This is still dry, but as I say, I'm going to water this. Now, just a little tip on your staples. If they were wide like that and you put them into the cutting, that it would rip the cutting. So it needs to be nice and parallel so it goes in and just stays, and it's only like 2 little pierced holes. We did discuss just a minute ago about, in some books, we're not going to name who they are, that they use pebbles to stabilise the leaves on there. Well, you couldn't certainly do that for the leaf squares because the pebbles would actually take up most of the space of the leaf square, but they would actually start to decay the tissue underneath where the pebble is, and then the tissue around it would start to come up. So these modified staples are far better than if you use pebbles. There we go. We could probably get another 2 in there and do 6 leaf squares and the leaf lamina. Now you might say, what's the difference between the 2? The leaf lamina one is excellent if you've got an intact leaf where it's pest and disease free, it's fully turgid, and there's no signs of damage. But where you've got damaged leaves, and you can cut them up into squares and use them for that, and that would be an excellent way of using up these leaves that would otherwise not be of any use. So that's us, Christine Lavelle, signing out from Whittle University College on our leaf lamina full blade cutting and our leaf squares. Right. Well, welcome to Whittle College, and we've got another propagation method to show you today, and our next one today is on leaf petiole cuttings. And as the name suggests, it's using a plant where you're going to take both the lamina and the petiole to make the entire cutting. So this plant here is the African violet, which is known as St. Paulia, well, commonly known as St. Paulia. It's actually changed its name now to Streptocarpus. And we're going to take the leaves here. We're going to take the leaves where they're fully mature but still young, and so they don't have to continue to expand out. So I'm looking for 3 of these. So I've got this little piggy, this little piggy, and probably I'll go for this little piggy. But that one's not a bad one as well. These ones here, they're in good condition, but these are too young, these ones here to take. So I'm going to take my secateurs. I'm going to remove the leaves one by one. I'm not going to take all three at the one time, and that's because if I took all three at the one time, they've got a chance to dry out in between. So take them off one at a time, then take them across to your tile. They normally say in the books to leave your petiole about 2 centimetres. I've found that 2 centimetres is too small because it becomes quite unstable when it's in the tray. So I usually take mine about 3 to 4. So we're going to take it, this is the lamina, this is the petiole, we're going to take it round about here, nice straight cut across, and then we're going to dip it in a rooting hormone liquid. There we are. And then we're going to take a dibber, we're going to insert a hole in the compost, not too near the side because it dries out in that side, so just a little bit in from the side, and then we're going to insert our cutting. I'm going to turn that round and show you that when you firm it in, that the base of the actual lamina is just sitting just right on the surface of the compost here. It doesn't want to be sort of into the compost, it doesn't want to be above the compost, just sitting nicely on there. Now if you've firmed it in and you've created a little dip in the compost, that's where water would collect and start to rot your cutting off. So you want to make sure that it's nice and level before you go on to the next one. So we're just going to go on to the next one now. So I'm just going to cut this one off with the knife. You can do this really quickly. So this is a lovely cutting here. It's pest and disease free, it's fully turgid, there's no damage to it, and I'm just going to make a cutting about 3 centimetres down from the lamina, close my knife up, dip it in the rooting hormone liquid, oops, and then I'm going to insert another one, and I'm going to go on to the third and final one. So these African violets, as they're commonly known as, these are quite hairy on the leaf, and so if you top water them, they tend to get discoloured. I'll show you one that has, even in the, so these are only about a week old. This is coloration is due to water splashing there, so they either need to be watered at the base of the actual pot or sat in a saucer with the water to be taken up, and that's what happens. Just trim that up. Yeah. And then we're going to insert this in, make sure that the base of the lamina is sitting nicely on the top of the compost. And that is your 3 leaf petiole cuttings. We're now going to go on, finally, for our last finale today is to look at streptocarpus. Now this streptocarpus that I'm going to do, this is the leaves of them, and if someone doesn't mind just going over to get us, I should have brought a flower or a small pot of it over to show you what the full plant looks like. This is in a display glass house, so this looks like a streptocarpus on steroids, this particular one here, as opposed to when it's a normal house plant. This one's commonly known as the Cape Primrose. It's now, the St. Paulia is now a streptocarpus too, and they actually look quite different really. So the African violet and the Cape Primrose. Here's a specimen that's seen better days, but that's the flower that you can see here. Imagine this being on the video, eh? Oh, our specimen. Just look at the flower anyway. So that's our Cape Primrose. This is the leaves of the ones that we've got in this display house. Now we're going to do a different type of propagation from here. It's not a leaf petiole cutting such as these. We've already done leaf lamina in a previous video. We're going to do leaf section cuttings on these, where we're going to cut the leaves into leaf sections. So I've got, I'll start off with this smaller one. I think would be a good one to do for here. So you need to know what's the top of the cutting and what's the top of the cutting and the bottom of the cutting, and it all relates to the leaf itself. This would make probably a good cutting for cutting it up in 3 sections. You're looking for around about 5 centimetres each. So I'm going to put that on the underside. So that, sorry, the underside is on the top. And then I'm going to make a cutting round about here. Keep your fingers right across because again it will tear just like in the leaf lamina cuttings. Make sure that your knife is nice and sharp. It's a nice horizontal cutting. I'm going to move it up. I'm going to cut it across again. And I'm going to cut it across again. There we are. So I've got my leaves in 3 sections. So I'm going to keep it that way up so I know what's the top and what's the bottom. Because it's easy enough for this one here because you can see what the top is and you can see what the bottom is. I'm just going to dip it in my rooting hormone liquid. And then I'm going to use my dibber and just make a little trench in here. You could use your finger as well. And then you're going to put it round about sort of halfway down, a third to halfway down into the trench, and we're going to cover it back over. Now I haven't got one with me today, but if you've got a little 10 centimetre, 15 centimetre ruler, that's quite a nice instrument, a good instrument for making a little trench for your streptocarpus cuttings. So there we are. So that's the first one in. I'm going to go for the next one now. So now that's the top, that's the bottom. So I know that's the top, that's the bottom, because look, it looks quite similar, apart from the way that the veins go, so it's quite important. I'm going to dip that in again. I'm going to get my stick and I'm going to make a new little trench. And yeah, this is why it's better not to water this compost. It needs to be moist but not water, because if you're making these trenches and it'll be watered, it's very difficult to get that trench out. So I'm just going to backfill that. Got my dibber, it's made out of a forsythia from out the front there. So I'm just going to fill that in, firm it in. It needs to be nice and stable and not just sticking out, because there'll be too much water loss from it then. So nice and tidy. So that's my second one in, and this is the final one. That's the top, that's the bottom. Turn it over. This is the side to be dipped in the rooting hormone liquid. And here we go for the final one. There we are, we're in the home straight. Da, 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 da. Oh. Who mixed that compost? I'm going to put that in. In it goes. I'm going to firm it in. And I think there we are. That is our second lot of leaf cuttings. So just to go over that again, we've got some leaf petiole cuttings here where we've taken them a little bit in from the side. When we've inserted them, we've done it with a dibber, and the leaf lamina is sitting on the surface here. So we've got 3 in here, evenly spaced apart. This is the St. Paulia, now known as Streptocarpus. Then we've actually moved on to the genus known as Streptocarpus for, well, ever since I started training, for years and years. This is a Cape Primrose, this particular one here, and we've done leaf section cuttings here, where we've taken a leaf and we've cut it into sections. And so the top of the leaf is at the top, the bottom part of the leaf is at the bottom. We've dipped that in rooting hormone powder again, taking the cutting around about 5 centimetres, and then half of it is underneath the surface of the compost here. So that's our leaf petiole and our leaf section cuttings. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.